So this evening we have Isabel, who is going to do a presentation on homeschooling.
Well, I could start speaking, couldn't I? When you've got to press buttons. Jan, thank you so
Go
much.
ahead.
I was
Go ahead and
really
speak.
excited to be able to do this because learning for children is my passion. Probably children, I would say, is my passion, and I'm positive that so many of you feel like that. So for me, obviously, and everybody, especially in the CC community, this is a crazy upheaval time where all the hidden stuff is coming out, all the worms and worse, of course. And everything is inside out, topsy-turvy, literally. And the big elephant in the room is that there are people literally telling our children to put toxic things and worse into their bodies. And of course, that's forcing our hand to make decisions. And I would suggest that we're never forced. It's always just it's the opportunity. And anyone who decides not to give their child that kind of toxin is making a decision for the child, and automatically, basically, you're going to be removing a child from school in many cases. So the homeschooling thing is no longer just a fad for kind of fun. It's something very different, and it shouldn't be the worst choice or just the choice that we fall into. And that's what I really wanted to talk about, because when we feel under pressure, everything tightens down and we feel into the victim place. And homeschooling is actually a doorway to do something very different for our children. And I just want to spend a few, like 20 minutes talking about those opportunities. And I'm really hoping that we can have discussion and questions, and it will just get us all thinking and feeling more about what we can do about this. So myself, I've worked with children forever, I think. So I babysat as a child, I was one of those kids. But I went and had a career in the arts and realised all the time that I needed to go back to work with children. My PhD was also about research, how children learn, and how children interact with nature to learn and to become stewards of themselves and nature. So that was always my principle. And what I discovered during that research was something I'd known in my childhood, thankfully, and it's called self-directed learning in the prepared environment. And that sounds like a strange sort of mouthful, but self-directed, you can tell, it comes from the inner, that all of us have an innate nature. We're born with a set of desires, wishes, codes imprinted into our DNA, but you could say it's, further, of course, it's our spirit, our soul, with a certain, I wouldn't necessarily mission, but certainly we've got talents and proclivities and areas that naturally are easy for us to develop. So there's this. And then the prepared environment is all about an environment which is obviously the people, it's the things, it's the nature, it's the emotional quality of the environment, all these different layers of the environment. And so a child who can truly learn and develop and grow, is someone who's able to exercise their own self-determination, this self-directed quality, with accompanied by good emotional quality, love, nurturing, upliftment, all these joy, all these positive things we understand. And there's so many studies, obviously, that we learn better through these strong, positive emotions. We actually learn through strong emotions. Pavlov's dog, that one with ringing the bell and getting the dog to eat the food. That wasn't a positive emotion. It was learning, but it was a negative one. And so far, of course, our system has very much more promoted fear-based learning. And just quickly, obviously, we know what fear-based learning is really, but it's attainment, certain levels of achievement, passing exams, having careers, going from this to that level, moving from one school to the university, all of these things, achievements dictated to us from outside authoritarian bodies. So what we have now is us saying no to the authorities, to the authoritarian bodies, because we know they've got it all wrong. I'm really fortunate that I've worked in a beautiful school for the last 14 years, and they've just been winning prizes left, right and centre because they genuinely are a loving place. So the children who go through that school are actually happy most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. So I've had that opportunity to be there in a beautiful, happy place and seen what it could be like in a school. But it's not a perfect situation because it's still an authoritarian structure imposed upon us where the world says, these are facts which we must stuff into you. Unless you take them in, you are useless because you cannot pass this certificate and show you're of any worth in the world. So this is all this external validation. And we know it's all about internal knowing, valuing, loving, understanding. And so when you get to the homeschooling opportunities, you have the opportunity not only of saying, here, child, it's kind of up to you what you're going to study next, but you also get the next level, which is, I think, where we're all heading. A lot of people are calling it fifth dimensional learning, or just fifth dimensional being. It's kind of ridiculous to put a label on it. Basically, it's this being a human in an expanded state. And we know as adults, we've torn apart our history to try and get back our own unique abilities. So, you know, telepathy, empathy, remote viewing, intuition, creativity. These things are actually a natural part of the human experience, which have been denied us for so long. And so suddenly we're not only just saying no to an authoritarian school system and say we're not having this entrainment system of fact stuffing, we're not having this repetition system of having to remember by rote a lot of nonsense, which we're told the next year is, oh, sorry, you don't need to know that anymore, the facts have changed. You know, all this nonsense that we've been programmed into believing is important. We have been denied these other unique skills and talents of the human being. And once you allow the child to have an inner being which says, actually, I'm really interested in this, that's all you need for learning. I was just looking up the etymology of school, because it's really funny. The Greek origin actually is leisure. Now, I'd totally forgotten that, but so that's kind of a whoppy. And actually, of course, true learning, as we said, positive emotion, that's how you learn. So suddenly here you go, you're at home, you're schooling a child, you're trying to work on the side, the child is supposed to be learning something, and you are assuming you've got to complete some kind of curriculum, otherwise your child is going to fail in a system. And then you just stop for a moment and realise, no, because the system hasn't worked. We need to allow this child to learn in their own way. And the way you do it, of course, is to follow their joys, their passions, their interests. I mean, we could go on and on and on about this in so many details, but I've got a funny example, which I think is worth using. You can actually teach the whole syllabus of A-level maths by planning and designing and building a treehouse. And I suppose most of us wouldn't think of that, and not all of us are going to do A-level maths. But the fact is, in that process of fun, you can learn very, very high-level mathematics. In the same way, if your child has an interest in natural things, you could learn all of the biology curriculum that you learn in a school up to A-level just in your back garden by looking at things and having a few bits of kit, you know, borrow a microscope, talk to biologists online. People, adults are so happy to share things. But basically, what we've forgotten is that the child has got, it's not a right, it's a divine imprint, a divine pattern. And so what I do as a coach is that I work with the parents to prepare their minds and their emotions to make this transition from, I send my child to school, you know, they've got a nice packed lunch, it's healthy, they go and they learn their curriculum and they come back home and eventually they do their GCSEs and they maybe do their A-levels, and I'm really pleased and proud of my son. That's the old system. So you've got these lovely parents who care and adore their children, and then it's like, what do I do? So I just help the parents prepare their emotional selves and of course their physical environment, because we have homes, we don't have schools. So how do you turn a home into a school? And there's a whole lot of ways that you find every single thing in your house has got a use and purpose for learning if you look at it in a different way. So that's one of the things that I like to work with the parents for. And where I work with the children is that they've gone to schools where all day, every day, they've been conditioned into this is right, that's wrong. You know, this duality that we're all used to. And basically, they have forgotten to trust that little inner voice, the intuition. They doubt the power, the reality of their creativity. And so everything I do with a child who's starting on the homeschool journey is to playfully remind them through lots of different exercises, games, mostly through the arts, that their intuition, their inner knowledge has validity. And once they start to see that, once they start to get that, then they're away. All they need is one subject that they love, and then the rest funnels in, and you can start with just looking at cornflakes, you know, because that was your breakfast discussion. And it could end in the evening with looking at all of the grains of the world and population distribution. You never know where the adventure is going to go. The other scary bit for parents, of course, is how on earth do I quantify and qualify what my child is learning? And for a long time, you won't be able to. But what you can do, and what you will be seeing, is the emotional quality in your child. And if your child's happy, then they're learning. You know, if they're not happy, nothing's going to work. Going to school, having a tutor bashing at them at the head all day, none of that's going to work unless they feel happy, proud of themselves. So, of course, the essence of homeschooling has to go back to the inner life of the human, their emotional quality, and the emotional quality dictates what they choose to learn. And even if it looks like they're just studying the contents of a cereal box and it's leading nowhere, I assure you, if they are focused, it's going to lead somewhere. So that's just a whole lot of kind of open-ended comments I've been throwing out. I'm just going to look at, these are my little notes, which is kind of fun for me. Because this is the world we're in, as you know. We're splitting away from that old story of the black and white, right and wrong, dictatorship, control, authoritarianism. And we're coming into that unity of love and inner peace, you could say, but I think that's too far a step. Inner knowing, self-love, awareness. And we parents scrabble around. We go to seminars, webinars, theory classes, therapists to try and find it again. And this is our chance to let our children never ever lose it. So that's the revolution that I believe that we, you know, people like us in Connecting Consciousness, that's the power we've got. We can hold that we allow our children to know and to retain their true selves from dot onwards. And we've got so many wonderful ways of doing this. So I think that's probably enough for me talking. And I'd just love to open the floor to questions and discussion, and hope that that I've sort of brought up enough excitement in you.